Part 36. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q. Int Love Is. Chapter 351. Suddenly a loud shout was heard, and everyone who was about to start digging stopped unconsciously. When they looked back, they discovered that several strong men with big waists, round waists and sinister faces were charging towards them menacingly. Before they could react, a young man with a green dragon tattooed on his chest grabbed Zhao Dongshen's collar. Perhaps in order to intimidate those present, the young man punched Zhao Dongshen in the face. Caught off guard, Zhao Dongshen was immediately stunned. Since he got to his current position, everyone has been polite to him. When has he ever suffered such a disadvantage? After reacting, he didn't even hold up his glasses and yelled at the young man. "Do you know who I am? How dare you hit me?" But as soon as he finished speaking, the young man slapped him in the face again. "I don't care who you are, do you know we have contracted this land?" Zhao Dongshen was completely stunned after being slapped one by one. Not to mention it was him, the other people next to him were also confused at the moment. Perhaps because everyone present was shocked by him, the fool with the green dragon tattoo on his chest grabbed Zhao Dongshen's collar and eagerly showed off his achievements to the elder brother behind him with a proud look on his face. "Brother, these people have been suppressed by me, now do I want them to pay directly or something?" However, at this moment, the big brother behind him, who was more than 1.9 meters tall and covered with flesh, looked around, and his eyes suddenly became uncomfortable. At first, like his younger brother, he thought they were a group of tourists from the city, waiting for an opportunity to make a fortune. But he soon discovered that the atmosphere at the scene seemed not quite right. Not to mention people like Zhao Dongshen, they don't look like ordinary people. What's more important is that there are several people in uniforms among the crowd. Some were wearing military uniforms, some were wearing police uniforms, and some were wearing overalls such as urban management and tax uniforms. To them, any one of these people is like a father, not to mention that they still appear together. In addition, these people were holding either hoes or shovels in their hands, and he had a bad guess in his mind. Immediately, he cautiously walked towards a middle-aged man with a big belly and wearing a white shirt. "I'm sorry, leader, but what are you digging for here? Did a murder happen here? If necessary, we will cooperate at any time." And as soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man with a big belly looked at Zhao Dongshen aside. It seemed that he was waiting for Zhao Dongshen to speak first. His performance instantly made the already panicked strong man even more panicked. At this point, he still couldn't tell who was the biggest at the scene. Just when he was about to express his apology to Zhao Dongshen with a grimace on his face, another voice suddenly came from the side. "Keep digging, it's getting late." Hearing this voice, the strong man didn't take it to heart at first. Until Zhao Dongshen, who was originally angry, suddenly seemed to be a different person, nodding and bowing. "Okay, Taoist Yang, let's continue." Seeing Zhao Dongshen's performance, the strong man unconsciously looked in the direction of the sound. The next second, a young Taoist priest wearing Taoist robes appeared in his field of vision. He really couldn't understand why this little Taoist priest could become the person with the highest status among the people present. But out of curiosity, he finally couldn't help but ask Yang Lin. "Taoist priest, what are you digging for?" Everyone thought that Yang Lin would not answer the brawny man's question, but to their surprise, Yang Lin started to explain to him after taking a look at the brawny man. When he heard that the corpses of anti-Japanese war martyrs who died here 80 years ago were buried in the river valley in front of him, the strong man's expression immediately changed. Seemingly unsure, he quickly asked again. "Taoist master, are you sure that the bodies of the anti-war martyrs who died 80 years ago are here?" Everyone seemed not to expect that he would suddenly ask this question, and they all looked sideways. Yang Lin nodded. The next second, under the surprised gazes of everyone, the strong man and the few people he brought with him were all extremely excited. When everyone reacted, they turned around and left. What's going on with these people? Yeah, he came quickly and left quickly, and he didn't do anything. Who said they didn't do anything? Didn't that give Secretary Zhao a hard time and a slap in the face? I feel sorry for Secretary Zhao for 3 seconds. By the way, those few people just now should be local villagers, right? Not long after those people left, everyone continued to dig. Although there were quite a lot of people coming with us, there were hundreds of people. But the area circled by Yanglin is also large enough, covering tens of thousands of square meters. Divided into almost one person per person, the area to be excavated is hundreds of square meters. In addition, this is a river beach area, and there are a lot of stones. Shovels are not very useful here. Therefore, the excavation work progressed very slowly. According to this trend, I am afraid that even if we dig until dark, we will not be able to complete the excavation work. However, just when everyone had been digging for about an hour, a burst of rapid footsteps came from behind them. When everyone looked back, the scene they saw immediately changed their expressions. Less than 100 meters away from them, hundreds of villagers carrying hoes, shovels and other farm tools were rushing toward them menacingly. The leaders were those who had just left. Behind this team, you can even see a steady stream of villagers gathering towards them. In just a few seconds, the number of people expanded from a few hundred to nearly 1,000. Such a big scene frightened everyone present on the spot, and even the audience in the live broadcast room was stunned. What's going on? This is what these villagers want to do. It looked like they were here for a group fight, so I asked why those people just left for no reason. It turned out that they went back to shake people because they didn't think they could beat them. I have always heard that people in some places are more united and their folk customs are more sturdy. Today I saw that it is true. This is nothing. When I was a child, thousands of people from neighboring villages and our village fought together to fight for water. And many old people in this kind of village have little legal awareness, and they are really capable of killing them if they get into a fight. It's over, I'm afraid the situation is going to get out of control now. At this moment, everyone thought these villagers were here to cause trouble. However, after they arrived, everyone gradually realized that this was not the case. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 352. In the frightened eyes of Zhao Dongsheng and others, nearly 1,000 villagers holding farm tools quickly surrounded them. Zhao Dongsheng's hands began to tremble unconsciously, and he subconsciously took out his mobile phone from his pocket to make a call. In his opinion, such a situation already requires the dispatch of the army or a large number of civilian police. But at this moment, he seemed to suddenly think of something, and his eyes unconsciously glanced at Yang Lin next to him. What should Taoist Master Yang do now? These villagers can tell at a glance that they are here to stop our excavation work. Do you need me to contact the surrounding police stations? However, as soon as he finished speaking, Yang Lin shook his head. No need, they are not here to stop our excavation work. Just at this moment, the strong man who was about 1.9 meters tall suddenly led several white-haired old people who were unsteady when walking towards them. When he led the old men to Yang Lin, he said to an old man on crutches, "Great uncle, this Taoist priest said that the bodies of those martyrs were buried here." Upon hearing his words, the originally cloudy eyes of the old man with age spots on his face, whom he called great uncle, suddenly became brighter. After some squirming of his mouth, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. "You can't joke about the little Taoist priest. We have searched for them for decades and still can't find them. How did you know they were here?" Hearing the old man's words, Yang Lin didn't feel strange at all. He walked straight towards a place about 2 meters away from him. After kicking away a large stone about 50 centimeters in diameter, he picked up something from under the stone. At first, no one could see what this thing was. Until the veteran who first came to Yang Lin for help let out a cry of surprise. "This is the charge, this is the charge of the old squad leader. They're here, they must be here." After hearing his words, everyone took a serious look at the things in Yang Lin's hands. As expected, this thing turned out to be a rusty and deformed charge. One or two red lines that were not completely rotted could still be seen faintly on it. And the great uncle seemed to be very familiar with the assault horn in front of him. "Yes, it is what it is. I remember that I was only 4 years old. When they came to our village, there was an uncle who had this assault rifle on his waist." After saying this, tears shed from his eyes. "In order to cover the evacuation of our whole village, they stayed here to contain the enemy. It's just that we didn't expect that they would stay forever. When the whole village came back, we would never see them again. It's been more than 80 years. I always thought they went somewhere else. They are the great benefactors of our entire village. Without them, our shiny village would have ceased to exist more than 80 years ago." After speaking, the old man said loudly to the other villagers behind him, "Everyone, kneel down." The next second, the old man took the lead and knelt on the ground with a plop. When the other villagers saw this, they all knelt down on the river beach without hesitation. When this scene appeared on the scene and in everyone's eyes, everyone suddenly became more and more confused. For them, this reversal came too quickly. A second ago, these villagers were all looking fierce, as if they were coming to fight. The next second after the result, they all suddenly knelt down. But based on what the old man said just now, they quickly pieced together a fact. 80 years ago, the old man's team happened to be fighting guerrillas in the surrounding area. They happened to encounter a large-scale raid by the enemy. In order to cover the retreat of the villagers, they chose to stay and contain the enemy's main force. At the same time, he took away the youngest man in the team. At the beginning, they were still digging with tools, but after discovering that there were too many pebbles in the river beach, they simply threw the tools aside. This excavation lasted 2 or 3 hours. If Pandeo was not mistaken, not long after they sacrificed their lives more than 80 years ago, a mountain collapse occurred here. But from a perceptual point of view, Qingshan is lucky enough to bury his loyal bones. In addition, there are rivers washing here, so it's normal that you can't find it. It just so happened that their remains were preserved because of the burial of their bodies. It is almost impossible to ensure that the whole body is left behind. From a rational perspective, this may just be a coincidence. After the atmosphere at the scene was silent for a few minutes, the great uncle from Shinya village immediately shouted at the top of his voice to all the villagers. Listening to the old man's doubts, everyone pricked up their ears. "What on earth is going on, Daozang Yang? Why didn't we find them before? It stands to reason that they are here. Let's all work together to let our benefactors go home." I started digging in the river beach with my bare hands. His words were like a beginning. Gradually, blood began to ooze from their palms and fingers and became bloody. The earth that collapsed from the nearby mountain just buried the bodies of the martyrs. At this moment, the sky began to gradually darken. They also know that the heroes who were buried here have been waiting for more than 80 years, and they cannot delay even a quarter of an hour. And Yang Lin quickly gave an explanation. I don't know how much time passed, but a middle-aged man suddenly shouted excitedly. During this process, the skin of many people's hands has been dug out, and their fingernails have been somewhat worn. I am also filled with emotion in my heart. When Zhao Dongsheng and others saw this, they were naturally unwilling to be outdone. Also having such doubts was the old man from before. After listening to Yang Lin's explanation, everyone present suddenly understood. Perhaps God doesn't want them to be exposed in the wilderness. As he raised his arms and shouted, the villagers present quickly joined the excavation process with tools in hand. Because they know that no matter how much blood they shed now, it will not be as much as 1/10,000th of what their ancestors shed back then. In such a war-torn era, if the nearby peaks had not collapsed, the corpses of these martyrs would have been eaten up by wild beasts in the mountains, or carried downstream by rivers. They have been waiting here for more than 80 years and we cannot let them wait any longer. But the only thing that everyone couldn't figure out was why the villagers didn't find the bodies of these martyrs after the incident happened. Found it? After all the villagers evacuated safely, they all died on this river beach due to the disparity in strength. Soon a large number of remains were excavated. But even so, no one at the site quit the excavation work, not even a child in his 10s. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 353. On the river beach, as the dusk grew darker, many corpses were found one after another. And this was undoubtedly a shot in the arm for everyone present. Inexplicably, everyone felt that the fatigue all over their bodies had disappeared, and even the wounds on their fingers seemed to be less painful. As time passed, more and more bodies were excavated. Some of the corpses were still intact, but some were in pieces. It is not known whether it was caused at the time of death or formed after death. Every time they found a body, everyone carried it to the white cloth aside. 2 hours later, a total of 107 skeletons were found. In addition to the skeletons, a large number of weapons and equipment and rotten clothing were also unearthed. Their previous belongings can be vaguely seen from the clothes, which are almost exactly the same as the clothes in the photos provided by the old man. From this their identities can basically be determined. They were the same group of martyrs who all died when they were responsible for containing the enemy near Shinia village more than 80 years ago. After everyone repeatedly confirmed that nothing was missing at the scene, they walked to the corpses one by one with complicated expressions. At this moment, these 107 corpses were lying neatly on pieces of white cloth. Next to them were the weapons and equipment they used during their lifetimes and some of their relics. When everyone's eyes glanced at the corpses and their relics, their noses felt sore, their eyes instantly turned red, and tears flowed down from the corners of their eyes unconsciously. They range from the elderly in the village in their 80s and 90s to children in their 10s. From the Greenvine military representatives to members of various agencies, everyone had tears in their eyes and heavy hearts. It's not that they are sentimental, but the corpses in front of them are really too miserable. Even if only the bones are left, one can still feel the brutality of that battle. Almost no piece of their entire body is complete. Bayonet and bullet scars can be seen everywhere. Many of the corpses were extremely slender and not very tall, obviously caused by long-term malnutrition. The weapons placed next to them also made people cry. They are said to be firearms, but in fact they are just some crudely made guns and cannons. Even among the 107 corpses at the scene, only 60 or 70 firearms were found. It is difficult to find two identical ones. In addition to firearms, there are even many large blades and spears. And that's all they have. They also relied on these to fight against the powerful enemy forces and successfully contain them, allowing the villagers of Shinia village enough time to evacuate. Just as everyone was crying at the scene, the old man from before knelt tremblingly in front of the corpses. It's been more than 80 years. It's been more than 80 years. I finally found you. Why did you abandon me in the first place? Leave me alone in this world. While talking about the old man, he burst into tears. At the age of 96, he cried like a 7 or 8-year-old child. And everyone understood his performance very well. All his comrades died, leaving him alone in this world, and even his unit number was abolished. No one can accept this. and while the old man was crying sadly, the villagers of Shiny village also knelt in front of these corpses under the leadership of their great uncle. Without saying anything, they started kowtow. Some elders who had experienced that incident also had tears in their eyes. Yeah, I used to be afraid of seeing skeletons and ghosts, but now I don't feel afraid at all. Daozang Yang, thank you so much this time. If it weren't for you, these martyrs would be buried here forever. When the scenes that happened on the river beach were shown in the live broadcast room through the lens of the program team, each of the hundreds of thousands of viewers in the live broadcast room looked solemn. Yeah. Yes, I also want to see them, and let them see us now, and let them know that their sacrifices were not in vain. Representatives from various agencies who came with him also followed suit. If it weren't for these martyrs in front of us, all the villagers in Shiny village would have been killed long ago. Although they do not have the comradeship of the old man, they are deeply grateful. If I remember correctly, the number of people in the old man's previous photo was exactly 108, which means that except for the old man himself, all the remaining 170 people died here. It's basically impossible. There were no paper records at that time. Not to mention figuring out their names, it was also very difficult to match up their bones with numbers. Knowing that you will die, you still have no hesitation. If possible, I hope to build a separate cemetery for them. I would like to visit them no matter how far away they are. It is respect and regret for the revolutionary martyrs. Although I have received relevant education since I was a child, I feel that no matter how much information and pictures there are, they are far less shocking than what I see now. But there is one more task before that, and I may need to trouble you. I'm afraid they had already made up their mind to die. I hope that today's live broadcast content can be rotated across the entire network. They have been anonymous in this barren mountain and wilderness for decades. While the netizens in the live broadcast room were filled with emotion, the old man's emotions finally calmed down a little. Next, our military will also work with relevant departments to transfer their remains to the Martyrs Cemetery as soon as possible. After hearing this, everyone seemed to have thought of something, and everyone looked at Yang Lin at the same time. And the emotions they contain are of another kind. Seeing this scene, everyone present also started to help. It is impossible for these people to exist in this world now. Under the gaze of everyone, he carefully took off his handkerchief from his chest, and then tried to wipe away the mud on the skeleton in front of him. My heart is very heavy now. Maybe there were countless of them before we could be where we are today. They tried their best to keep the remains of these martyrs intact and clean. With the concerted efforts of everyone, the 107 skeletons were quickly sorted out and the broken bones were pieced together. Without saying a word, he took off his military cap and saluted the corpses. Why should we be afraid of a group of people who can risk their lives to protect us? After all this was completed, a military representative in military uniform came out. It was all the villagers of Shiny village that they saved, and they exchanged their lives for the continuation of the bloodline of Shiny village. The only troublesome thing is to find out their names and related information. It would be better if they can find their living relatives. The eyes started peeing again. I'm afraid the old man himself won't be able to recognize them now. Without towels, they took off their clothes. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 354. According to normal procedures, the corpses of these anti-war martyrs will be handed over to specific departments for cleaning and burning. The ashes are then placed in the coffin, and after specific rituals are completed, they are buried in the martyrs' cemetery. Their names, unit numbers, and deeds during their lifetime will be engraved on the tombstones. For those who come later to admire. If they still have relatives alive, they can come here to remember them. However, one problem they need to face now is that they only found the bones and did not find any information that could prove the identity of these bones. The only relevant information is an old photo. But with this old photo, it is impossible to identify the corpses at the scene, let alone know their names and related information. Moreover, they also asked the old gentleman himself, and the old gentleman himself said that at the beginning he only knew the nicknames of some people in the army. There are several soldiers who have just joined the army a few days ago. In such a situation, even with the most advanced forensic methods, there is no way to find out their identities. In the end, I'm afraid I can only write the words unknown martyr on their tombstones. If it had been before, maybe that would have been the case. But after they saw Yang Lin, they suddenly remembered that Yang Lin seemed to have a special ability. That is to restore the appearance of the deceased based on the corpse. Previously, when Yang Lin was still in Jinghai City, he used this method to provide relevant clues to the local public security department. At that time, this incident was also on the hot search and caused quite a stir. Many people present knew about this. Therefore, when it came to finding out the identities of these martyrs, their first reaction was to think of Yang Lin. Facing the gaze of everyone, Yang Lin didn't seem to feel strange at all. At this moment, several people from the program team on the side took out pens and paper from their backpacks very considerately. However, Yang Lin did not reach out to pick it up. After glancing around, he said calmly, "No need to bother." Because they still had obsessions when they were alive, their brain waves did not completely dissipate, but stayed here. If you are not afraid, Pandeo can let you see them again. As soon as these words came out, everyone who was still expecting something suddenly had such big eyes, full of disbelief. Some even doubted whether they heard correctly. Only the 96-year-old gentleman looked at Yang Lin with excitement. "Daozang Yang, are you telling the truth? Can I really see them again?" Facing the old gentleman's question, Yang Lin nodded calmly. As if this is not a big deal. When everyone around them saw Yang Lin nodding in confirmation, they were even more shocked. "Daozang Yang, are you kidding? They have left this world for decades. Even if there are still residual brain waves, they should have almost dissipated. Yes, what kind of obsession allows them to stay here for decades?" Obviously, no one doubted whether Yang Lin could let them see the appearance of those martyrs when they were alive. After all, yesterday, Yang Lin prayed for a heavy rain for Luteng City. This matter is no longer a secret. What's more important is that in recent times, a large number of divine manifestations have occurred across the country. Netizens also firmly believe that the world now seems to be different from before. All they were worried about was whether Yang Lin could do it. This time, Yang Lin did not respond. He turned around and took out a number of items from the bag. Yellow paper, incense, candles, everything is very familiar to everyone. After taking out these things, Yang Lin immediately started to practice. There was no hiding at all, every step was displayed in front of everyone. At the end, he took out a candle from nowhere and put the candle into the hands of the old gentleman. "You are the person they were close to during their lifetime, so it's up to you to take them home." Although Yang Lin did not explain specifically what to do, the old man seemed to understand everything the moment he came into contact with the candle. I saw him holding this candle and walking to the skeletons one by one. Every time he passed a skeleton, he placed a candle and lit it. The originally dark river beach soon became brighter with the decoration of these candles. When all the candles were lit, the river beach in front of them began to change little by little. It's a bit familiar, but also a bit strange. After seeing the old gentleman, a loving smile suddenly appeared on his weathered face. And the old gentleman turned into a 13 or 14-year-old child soldier at this moment. He wanted to tell them that everyone was doing well now. Perhaps thinking of something, the cameraman of the program team quickly picked up the camera and pointed it at them. "My name is Niu Chun Sheng, from southern Henan. Both appearance and accent are different." After that, some figures came out of the darkness one after another. Just when everyone was confused, a figure suddenly walked out of the dark place. Some have unshaven beards, while others still have a childish look on their faces. Faced with a series of words of concern, the only thing the old gentleman could do was to nod desperately. Their queue was exactly the same as in the old photo. Some of them are tall and some are thin. I saw that this man was about 1.7 meters tall, wearing a shabby military uniform, with a layer of bandages wrapped around his head, and a charge horn on his waist. Every one of them had a smile on their face, especially after seeing the old gentleman. Xiao Xuanzi, do everyone have enough to eat now? Little Xuanzi, you have grown so big. At the same time, they also spoke loudly to everyone. Everyone will be very enthusiastic and take the initiative to say hello. As he spoke, he patted the old gentleman's head lovingly. Listening to their voices, everyone present and the audience in the live broadcast room instantly shed tears again. It was obviously the same place, but the topography was completely different from now. Upon hearing these questions, the old gentleman nodded quickly. When the shutter clicked, their smiles were frozen forever. The only thing they have in common is the shabby military uniforms on their bodies and the unit numbers on their chests. After a while, there was a dense crowd of figures standing behind the old gentleman. Little Xuanzi, why are you still crying? Xiao Xuanzi, those people behind you must be people from more than 80 years later. They all look happy. My name is Su Das Han, from Bashu. But after seeing the smiling expressions on their faces, these words were buried silently in their hearts. The old gentleman himself is still standing in the same position as in the photo. Little Xuanzi, is this the world more than 80 years from now? Have all the enemies been beaten away? Even the smiles are exactly the same. Do the people in Xuanzi have houses to live in now, and do they have their own fields? Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 355. On the river beach, the 107 martyrs who had sacrificed their lives here more than 80 years ago appeared one after another. Whether it was everyone at the scene or the audience in the live broadcast room, everyone shed tears on the spot. At this moment, they seemed to understand what Yang Lin meant by obsession. The so-called obsession is their expectations for the future and their best wishes for their relatives, close friends, and people. They want to take another look at the great mountains and rivers more than 80 years later. And now they finally got their wish. They witnessed that the mountains and rivers remained intact and the people were healthy. After letting go of this obsession, their figures slowly drifted away like dots of fireflies. A few seconds later, out of the 108 people who were originally lined up neatly, only the old gentleman was left standing there alone. But now his face was no longer covered with tears, but was filled with a happy smile. After more than 80 years, he finally got his wish. And everyone at the scene finally came to their senses at this moment. Looking at the empty space in front of them, they felt as if they were awakening from a big dream. Everything that just happened was like a dream. But they knew that it was not a dream, but a reality. After a brief return, the martyrs quietly left this world. A long silence followed. It took several minutes for everyone to collect their emotions and compare the names and positions of the martyrs with their corpses. It didn't take long to confirm the identities of the corpses that had no names at first. From this moment on, they were no longer unknown martyrs, but martyrs of the war of resistance with names. Their names will be engraved on the monument and remembered by the world. As for Yang Lin's previous method of summoning the spirits of these martyrs, everyone chose not to mention it at the same time. On the contrary, the audience in the live broadcast room exploded one by one at this moment. My eyes are peeing again and I can't control it at all. For the first time, I felt that having ghosts in the world is not a bad thing. They are not ghosts. They are the cutest people in the world and the ones that countless people miss. It's great. If possible, I really hope that the heroes who sacrificed their lives in the war can come back and see what the new world they created and protected looks like today. They should be very happy. It would be even better if technology could do that. Give Yang Lin a thumbs up. For a moment, the live broadcast room was full of emotion. On the other side, the people on the river beach further arranged the corpses of the martyrs. However, unlike the previous agreement, the military finally decided not to move these 107 martyrs to the martyrs' cemetery. Instead, they chose to build a cemetery specifically to commemorate them on this river beach. At the same time, this place will be set up as a site of the anti-Japanese war. Once completed, it will be open to the public free of charge. Upon hearing this decision, all the villagers in Shinya village immediately cheered. They said on the spot that they would participate in the construction of the cemetery free of charge. So far, this matter has come to a successful conclusion. After handing the matter over to the relevant departments, Yang Lin and the members of the program crew took a car and embarked on the return journey. Unknowingly, the time came to 10 o'clock in the evening. Since a big thing has been solved, the road back will be easier than when we came here. But at the same time, everyone except Yang Lin was hungry, tired, and sleepy because they had been busy all day. So after driving for almost an hour, everyone in the program crew chose to stop the car. To avoid fatigue driving. Teacher Yang, why don't we go back today? I looked at the map on my phone and there happened to be a town not far away with a hotel, so we went there to spend the night. Yeah, I'm tired and haven't eaten for a whole day. I feel like I'm in a trance now. If we keep driving like this, I'm worried that we, including the people and the car, will fall into the ditch. The main reason is that I'm hungry. I feel like the road ahead is starting to twist. Have a night's rest and go back early tomorrow morning. There's nothing wrong anyway. Listening to the words of several people and looking at their tired looks, Yang Lin nodded without thinking. To him, it doesn't matter where he lives. Seeing that Yang Lin agreed, the program crew and the other vehicles behind them turned straight into the nearby town. The town is big or small, and it has everything it needs. Supermarkets, restaurants, hotels, and hotels are all not left behind. Just because it was too late, most businesses had closed down. After searching around, the program team finally found a small hotel called Ziongrui Restaurant. As soon as I walked into the small hotel, I was greeted by the enthusiastic landlady. After seeing the various shooting equipment held by the program crew, a look of realization suddenly appeared on their faces. You are also in the self-media business, right? Several groups of people have come here these days. I don't know what's so interesting about that dilapidated garden. Hearing what the boss lady said, the program team immediately looked at each other. However, they did not explain their identities immediately, but asked the landlady with curiosity. Lady boss, what kind of garden are you talking about? Have many people come to your place to take photos recently? No, since a self-media internet celebrity came to take pictures here, we have become an internet celebrity town. Every day, a large group of young people take their mobile phones and run to the back of the mountain to live broadcast. They all said it was haunted. Let me tell you, where in the world did the ghosts come from? They just hyped it up purely for traffic and popularity. While talking, the proprietress may have noticed the weak expressions of several people, and hurriedly picked up a list from the counter. You haven't eaten yet? Do you want something to eat? We have hot pot, stews and everything. Hearing what the boss lady said, several members of the program team nodded. Now they can eat a cow when they are hungry. In a short time, a large table of dishes was ordered, and while the dishes were being served, they continued chatting with the landlady. I soon understood what the landlady said. It turned out that some investors had built a resort villa area behind their town, which was full of high-end villas. But just when it was about to be completed, the villa area suddenly fell into disrepair. However, After being abandoned for more than 10 years, people suddenly reported that there was a ghost in this villa area. Many well-known bloggers on the internet even came here to shoot videos. As a result, the heat here has been further heightened. And the day before yesterday, an internet celebrity with more than 500,000 followers suddenly disappeared inside, which made the villa area even more famous. Every day during the day, at least dozens of anchors come to the entrance of the villa area to broadcast live. After hearing this, several members of the program team suddenly became interested. He turned around and looked at Yang Lin aside. "Teacher Yang, there's nothing to do tomorrow anyway, why don't we go take a look tomorrow too?" "Yeah, it's hard to come here." After hearing what everyone said, Yang Lin's expression suddenly became serious. "Are you sure you want to go over there and take a look? There's no telling if there's really anything dirty there. When you came in, didn't you notice that the people in this town looked a little pale?" Hearing Yang Lin's words, everyone quickly turned to look at the proprietress who was sitting behind the counter looking at her mobile phone. Sure enough, as Yang Lin said, the landlady's face was not only a little pale, but her eyes were also a little black. Unconsciously, they felt that the air seemed to have become colder, and their expressions gradually became stiff. At this moment, Yang Lin suddenly smiled. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes." Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 356. A series of emotions such as panic, confusion, and confusion appeared on the faces of several members of the program team at this moment. It wasn't until Yang Lin started laughing that they realized something was wrong. "But I still don't understand what Yang Lin is laughing about. You just believe whatever I say." The boss lady's face is pale and her eyes are dark, just because of poor blood and staying up late for a long time. It doesn't have any direct bearing on whether there's dirt or not. After listening to Yang Lin's explanation, everyone in the program team breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Teacher Yang, can you not scare people with this kind of thing? And this kind of joke is not funny at all. Just now we thought the boss lady was a ghost. Do you only think the boss lady is a ghost? I just thought that everyone in the town had turned into ghosts. You must have watched too many horror movies. Where did so many ghosts come from in the world? If it weren't for Teacher Yang, we would never have seen them in this life. But don't talk about it yet. Recently, all kinds of mysterious things have been popping up. It's normal for ghosts to appear. Didn't Teacher Yang say everything before? There are no ghosts in this world, only the obsession of the dead to stay in this world." 2. At this point, everyone was finally no longer afraid, and the food was served at this time. Looking at the food on the table, everyone who was already hungry could no longer care about it. They picked up their chopsticks and started to eat happily. "It's like I haven't eaten in hundreds of years." In less than half an hour, the food on the table was cleared away by them like a whirlwind. And with food in his stomach, his physical strength has also been restored. Half of the tiredness all over his body had disappeared. It wasn't until deep sleepiness swept over them that they each returned to their rooms, washed up and went to sleep. Yang Lin is naturally the same as them. However, after returning to the room, he did not fall asleep immediately. Instead, he looked through the hotel window to the back of the town. There he felt an unusual aura, and a look of interest appeared on his face unconsciously. But he did not choose to act immediately, but turned and walked towards the sofa. After sitting cross-legged on it, you enter a state of trance. When he opened his eyes again, the sky outside was already bright. The clock on the wall showed that the time had reached 8:30 a.m. Just as he was about to get up, there was a knock on the door. "Teacher Yang, are you up?" Hearing this voice, Yang Lin casually opened the door. The next second, Several people from the program team walked in high spirits. Apparently after a night's rest, their mental state had completely recovered. "Teacher Yang, are you going to have breakfast? After breakfast, let's go to the villa area they talked about yesterday." "Okay." After saying this word, Yang Lin stood up from the sofa. Since the hotel is too small, breakfast service is not provided. After several people left the hotel, they came to the street of the town. However, when their eyes glanced around the town, their expression suddenly changed. Because it was too late last night and there were no street lights on both sides of the town, they didn't see clearly what was on both sides of the town. But now it was sunny during the day, and the scenes on both sides of the town were clearly visible. "Oh, I remembered. This town seems to be called Shillong Town. It mainly relies on the business of stone materials. What is this town about? It looks weird." However, everyone knew very well that this was not white snow, but stone that had been mined. Without topsoil and vegetation, the mountain looks particularly abrupt. These tombstones stretch for hundreds of meters. "That's it? I was scared to death just now. I thought they had something big going on here. Don't tell me that the tombstones produced in this town are quite famous. Even the funeral supplies now account for 10% of the national share." Only when they saw this big truck and the cargo pulled on it did everyone become aware of it. Later, due to environmental protection reasons, mining of stone in such a large area was no longer allowed. Later, in order to increase revenue, they switched from building stone to carving tombstones and selling funeral supplies. Just when several members of the program team felt their scalps numb, a large truck loaded with stones drove over from one end of the town. The top area is carved into a boxy shape, like a palace complex made of snow, shining in the early morning sun. If it hadn't been for broad daylight, the program team would have screamed in fear when they saw such a situation. In addition to a large number of self-media workers, what attracted the most attention of the program team was a big mountain. But no one dared to set foot in it until Yang Lin and others arrived. These self-media workers basically came here with the dream of becoming popular overnight. From time to time, one or two elderly ladies can be seen folding gold ingots in the shop. What's going on? Why are there such stone tablets and funeral items everywhere? Coffin paper figures, paper money, wreaths? After inquiring about the situation of the abandoned villa area, the program team started the live broadcast and at the same time drove in the direction of the villa area. In the open space on both sides of the road, tombstones made of gray stone and semi-finished stone products were neatly placed. I also met many self-media workers along the way. It seems that this thing created a lot of revenue for Luteng City a few years ago. It was previously said that the haunted villa area was at the foot of this mountain. A huge mountain covered in snow. Before they were completely close, a large group of modern buildings was clearly visible. In addition to the tombstones, there are some funeral supplies. Good guy, this is a whole industry chain. In front of the locked villa area, more than a dozen male and female anchors were live broadcasting passionately. Good guy, the GDP of a town is almost as high as that of some poor counties. The building complex is full of wild grass and vines, full of greenery, in sharp contrast to the barren Rocky Mountains next to it. With some curiosity, the program team quickly drove to the foot of the mountain. The palace complex-like shape is the trace left behind after decades of mining. Then they quickly found a breakfast shop and simply finished their breakfast. While talking, the staff of the program team picked up the information on the mobile phone and explained it to everyone. Everyone who reacted also breathed a long sigh of relief. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 357. On one side is the white and holy Beishi Mountain, on the other side is the deserted villa overgrown with weeds and vines everywhere. In addition, there are a group of internet celebrity anchors who are broadcasting live in front of the door with live broadcast equipment. The atmosphere here was also extremely weird for a while. And when this scene was presented to the audience in the live broadcast room through the live broadcast lens of the program team, the audience was a little confused. Didn't Yang Lin and the others return to Lutang City today? This is a place that looks really interesting. Why does it feel familiar to me? I seem to have been here recently when I was watching videos. By the way, isn't this the internet celebrity haunted house that has become very famous recently? I heard that it is haunted, and it seems to be pretty fierce. When you said that, I remembered that an anchor I followed before seems to be here. Is it really loud or fake? Of course it's true. He hasn't updated or broadcast live for 3 or 4 days. It's probably all stinky by now. In the past few days, dozens of anchors have come here to check in. Except for a few brave ones who went in at the beginning, the rest didn't even dare to step through the door. What on earth is inside? It's so evil, isn't it created just for traffic? As some well-informed netizens took the initiative to speak out, the villa area and related legends were gradually revealed by netizens. According to some netizens, the original location of this villa area was also a quarry. The stones quarried there are basically used to carve tombstones. However, due to various reasons, the quarry was forced to cease work. Some people say it's because of the accident that happened, while others say it's because something extraordinary was dug out in this quarry. And while netizens were talking a lot in the live broadcast room, several members of the program team also walked to the gate in front of the villa area. It happened that several anchors were enthusiastically introducing the legends about this villa area to the water friends in their live broadcast rooms. After some of their additions, the villa area, which was already full of mystery, became even more bizarre and strange. When several members of the program team were carrying equipment and preparing to go around them, a very energetic young man with dyed red hair hurriedly stopped them. "Brother, you can't go in here. Traffic is important, but life is also important. Just follow my advice and broadcast it here." After hearing Hung Mao's words, the program team did not immediately explain their identities, but looked at the interior of the villa area with interest. "What's wrong? Can't we go inside?" "You can go in, but I can't guarantee whether you can come out after going in." Hong Mao seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of fear appeared on his face unconsciously. "Why, is there really something dirty inside?" the camera guy couldn't help but ask. "That is to say, so many people took pictures here, didn't they all take pictures?" Seeing that several members of the program team did not believe him, Hong Mao became a little anxious. "Don't believe it, I was just like you when I came here the day before yesterday, but when I set up a tent next to here for the night before yesterday, I saw something." At this point, Hong Mao suddenly lowered his voice. The next second he took out his mobile phone from his pocket and opened the mobile phone album. After a few casual strokes, an unclear photo appeared in front of several people. The photo seems to be taken in the villa area at night. "How about we go in and have a look too? It is not accurate to say that it is a human figure. I think it has something to do with that place." Just when several members of the program team were filled with doubts, Yang Lin suddenly pointed his finger forward. "Are you lying? If you really have a companion missing here, why don't you call the police?" As soon as these words came out, several members of the program team immediately looked in the direction of Yang Lin's finger. After saying that, he made way for a few people from the program team. "But the other 2 people who came with me disappeared here that night. I'm not kidding, they really disappeared. Their tents and all their belongings were gone. What I'm more curious about is why did the developer choose to build such a luxurious villa in such a place? This is simply a waste. How many people have struggled all their lives and can't even afford a house? The villas here are so well built, but no one lives in them. It's such a waste." In the next second, under the eyes of everyone, the program team and Yang Lin got in through a gap in the fence of the villa area. Do I have to lie to you about this kind of thing? Of course, if you have to go in, I won't stop you. Anyway, good words can't persuade the damn devil. Looking at the weeds as tall as one person in front of them and the beautifully designed and magnificent luxury villas beside them, the program team couldn't help but complain. That's a good idea. There's not much traffic outside and no one is watching. How about we go in and have a look together? It's broad daylight anyway. Why are there so many people afraid? Good guy, while saying you don't believe it, you brought all the Taoist priests with you. This also gave the originally lifeless villa area a little more life. That means I think you just made it up. It looked particularly eerie in the dark night. As they watched, several members of the program team looked at each other. The strange thing is that this temple hangs halfway up the cliff. Because these shadows only look like people, but some aspects are not so human-like, such as their height of just over 1 meter and their green fluorescent eyes. At first, the program team didn't notice anything was wrong, until they saw a few figures in the lower right corner of the photo. It's not this set. I'm afraid it will cost several million. Moreover, the overall structure has basically been formed. Why doesn't anyone want it? At the same time, Yang Lin and others also came to the main road of the villa area. While talking, this group of internet celebrity anchors who originally only dared to broadcast live outside the villa area followed Yang Lin and others into the villa area. Let's go in together. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do about it. There, a simple temple covering an area of nearly several hundred square meters stood majestically. After hearing the words of several members of the program crew, Hong Mao immediately spread his hands. At this moment, Hong Mao also put away his mobile phone and looked at the people seriously again. I mean, where did they get such courage? It turns out they brought professionals. Not only are their equipment professional, but their staffing is also very professional. I don't know which big team they are from. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the program team members changed drastically, but at the same time, they also had a trace of suspicion. After I took this photo, I immediately packed up my tent and left. When they saw Yang Lin wearing Taoist robes behind him, the expressions on their faces became increasingly weird. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 358. Previously, because the villa area blocked the view, no one noticed that there was a temple on the cliff deep in the villa area. After seeing it clearly, the doubts on everyone's faces suddenly became more intense. It's so strange. Who would build a temple in a place like this, and it's still on a cliff? In other words, how did the temple get built in a place like this? I haven't heard anything from the villagers before. Didn't they say that this place was originally a quarry? Why is there a temple in the quarry? Looking at the style of this temple, it should be that the temple came first, and then the quarry. It is true that the style of this temple seems to be quite old. It should have been there for hundreds of years. Just when the members of the program team were filled with doubts, familiar voices suddenly came from behind them. It wasn't a cliff hundreds of years ago. Then they quarried stone and hollowed it out, so it became what it is now. At that time, it was said that there was a very large lake in front of the temple. Hearing this voice, the program host quickly looked back. At a glance, he saw the red-haired man who was live broadcasting at the entrance of the villa area. Why did you get in? Didn't you say it's unsafe because there's dirt in here? Faced with the doubts of several members of the program team, Hong Mao first smiled and then replied. You guys came in first, didn't you? And you brought professionals with you. With such professionals here, we shouldn't have any big problems. After saying that, he looked at Yang Lin aside, but when his eyes noticed Yang Lin's familiar face, he was stunned. After a long time, he gradually came to his senses. Inexplicably, he became extremely excited. After opening his mouth for a long time, he said in a surprised tone, "You are Yang Lin, a big star. I met a big star today." As he spoke, he quickly pointed his cell phone lens at Yang Lin. "Family, look who I met today. He is Yang Lin, the real Yang Lin." I also asked which anchor has such a big lineup and such a big team. After saying that, he quickly turned the camera on himself, and then furiously outputted to the few dozen people in the live broadcast room. But what he didn't notice was that Yang Lin and the program team took advantage of him to introduce it to the audience in his live broadcast room, turned around and left quickly. By the time he reacted, Yang Lin's figure had disappeared. On the other side, Yang Lin and others also passed through the jungle-like villa area and arrived at the bottom of the cliff. The temple they had seen before was now more than 100 meters above their heads. From their point of view, the temple seemed to be standing there out of thin air, full of mystery. "Teacher Yang, what kind of temple do you think this is? Why was it built in this position? I'm also quite curious about this place. It's out of the way and has no shops. And after hundreds of years, this temple seems to be quite intact. It would be great if I could go up and have a look, but unfortunately it's probably inaccessible except for rappelling from the top rope. I couldn't bring the drone with me, otherwise I could just let the drone fly up and take a look." Just when several people were talking to each other, a look of understanding appeared on Yang Lin's face. "This is probably not a real temple, but an underground palace. The temple is the entrance to the underground palace. As for this villa area, I guess it is used to hide from others." As soon as he said these words, several people from the program team next to him showed a look of disbelief. "No way, how can there be an underground palace in a place like this? If there is an underground palace, doesn't it mean there is an ancient tomb here? And for an underground palace, is it too expensive to build a new villa area here? It's hard to say. What if there are very valuable things in the underground palace? The cost will be enough to cover the cost of building a villa. If that's the case, then it all makes sense. Just saying, how could someone come to this remote place to build a villa and not even sell one? Also, when a quarry was built here before, it was actually a bit strange. The texture of the stone on the mountain here was obviously very poor and not suitable for mining at all. So the original investor was actually a tomb robber. They took advantage of the construction of the villa to secretly dig up the ancient tombs here and then moved away all the valuables inside. Good guy, then the rumor that it is haunted is not caused by them, right? It's just to scare away those who come here to explore. Where are the missing anchors? I guess I'm trapped somewhere and being beaten right now." As the truth of the matter was revealed by Yang Lin, everyone in the program team and the audience in the live broadcast room felt sad. But at this moment, Yang Lin suddenly spoke again. "Those rumors shouldn't be caused by them. There are indeed some unclean things here." As soon as these words came out, everyone's mood that had just relaxed suddenly became tense again. His eyes unconsciously looked around again, for fear that something would jump out from inside. At this time, they were placed in a patch of grass to the right, and suddenly there was a rustling sound. The highly nervous program team members were instantly frightened and screamed. The next second, under the horrified gazes of several people, a group of gray foxes as big as puppies emerged from the grass. After these foxes emerged from the grass, they actually stood up on their hind legs like humans. Then one by one they put their forelimbs on the shoulders of their companions in front, and walked to another patch of grass in a swaggering manner. The whole process was extremely skillful, and it was obviously not the first time I had done something like this. Even before they disappear, you can still see mocking expressions on their faces. Everyone's first reaction was that they had become spirits. But at this moment, Yang Lin suddenly walked towards the grass on the side. After removing the weeds that were as tall as a person, he revealed a stone statue inside. These stone statues stand in the grass one by one, arranged neatly, like soldiers waiting for review. Teacher Yang, what are these? The stone statue is alive. They have been exposed to wind and rain here for many years, absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon, and have gradually gained spirituality. Then these little parasitic animals stole their spirituality. That's why you were so surprised when you saw those foxes just now. Actually, not only these stone statues, but also some Buddha statues and deity statues in the wild, if no one takes care of them all year round, they will be occupied by the wild spirits. If Pandeo guessed correctly, there should be a bigger one above. Speaking of this, Yang Lin suddenly looked at the temple in the sky. The next second, under the gaze of everyone, he soared into the sky like a wild goose, and flew to the temple in a few seconds. It just so happened that Hung Mao's group of people also arrived late. When they saw Yang Lin rising into the sky, they were all stunned. At the same time, Yang Lin also came to the main entrance of the temple. When he looked up, a lifelike stone dragon statue was enshrined in the temple. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int Love is. Chapter 359. On a 100-meter cliff, Yang Lin stood quietly on a protruding rock. In front of you is the temple that was built hundreds of years ago. The temple faces the east, and it is mid-morning. The bright sunshine happens to shine through the door of the temple into its interior. The originally dim interior of the temple was now fully visible, and the lifelike stone dragon statue was bathed in sunlight. Despite this is a dragon, but there is no bright atmosphere at all. Instead, it is full of gloominess. Completely different from its domineering appearance. This temple was already weird when it was built here, and with the addition of this weird stone dragon, it added a bit of evil to the place. Unconsciously, people think of Shillong Town. But at this moment, Yang Lin's focus is not on the temple and the stone dragon statue, but on the stone coffin under the stone dragon. That's right, this huge stone dragon is lying on top of a huge sarcophagus. It is difficult to imagine what kind of mentality the people who built this temple had before placing a coffin on the altar of the temple. What's more important is that this sarcophagus and the stone dragon are carved in one piece, with no gaps in the middle, and it doesn't look like they were spliced together. Of course, this is only in the eyes of ordinary people, but in Yang Lin's eyes, it is a different scene. Through the layers of appearances, he first saw an extremely weak old dragon. Under Old Long's body was a corpse that had been buried for an unknown number of years. The two were tightly connected, and the corpse below was continuously absorbing the power of the old dragon. Whose handiwork is this? He actually came up with such a way to seize the dragon vein aura of this mountain and river, forcibly turning such a place where dragon veins gather into a lifeless place of death. It seems that there are many experts in this world, but it is a pity that having dragon vein aura but no corresponding method is just in vain. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Lin pulled out the sword from his back, and then slashed at the stone dragon with one strike. As a ray of sword light lit up, the lifelike stone dragon statue was chopped into two pieces by his sword. In an instant, the ground shook, and the entire mountain range began to shake violently at this moment, including the nearby Beishi mountain. At the same time, a long dragon roar spread throughout Shillong Town. Feeling this change and the dreamlike roar of the dragon beside their ears, the expressions of the people who were exploring the villa area suddenly changed. What's going on? Is there another earthquake? Is this mountain going to collapse? Probably not. And that sound just now, did you hear it? Why do I feel like that thing is the roar of a dragon? How is it possible? Where did the dragon come from in this world? Wait a minute, look at the temple over there. Is it shaking? Upon hearing this, everyone quickly looked up. Sure enough, The temple and the cliff where it was located were shaking violently at this moment. It was as if he would fall down at any moment. This shaking lasted for about 10 minutes. The final result was that the temple actually stood there firmly, not to mention collapsed, not even half of the tiles fell off. After witnessing the most outrageous scene with their own eyes, everyone's doubts suddenly became more intense. It was really hard for them to imagine what kind of construction technology this temple used to survive such a shaking situation. Just when everyone was filled with doubts, Yang Lin also made an unexpected discovery. I saw him gently knocking on all the items in the temple. A look of understanding suddenly appeared on his face. It turns out that this entire temple was carved out of this cliff. From the building itself to the furnishings in the temple, they are all integrated. Realizing this, even Yang Lin sighed in his heart. A temple is carved on an entire cliff, and it cannot be overstated to describe it as ingenious. Thinking of this, he looked at the sarcophagus again. This sarcophagus is also self-contained, with no opening or lid, just a single large stone. But inside such a big rock, there was a corpse lying there. He could now basically conclude that it was the corpse in the sarcophagus that carved out this temple and the stone dragon. Immediately, he no longer hesitated and raised the sword in his hand again. A ray of sword light struck the sarcophagus. The sarcophagus, which was slightly harder than granite, split into two instantly like a piece of tofu. The situation inside the coffin was thus exposed to Yang Lin. Inside the sealed coffin, an unknown male corpse was lying quietly inside. As for the wealth he left behind, it remains underground forever. Judging from his attire, it seems to come from the Ming dynasty hundreds of years ago. Thinking of this, Yang Lin looked at the big hole behind the sarcophagus. Apart from that, there is nothing. He was also the initiator who laid out special means to plunder the dragon's spiritual energy. The man lying inside the coffin is the sculptor who sees everything in front of him. This man's name is Macy Lang. He was born lonely, deaf, and mute. In the process, he continued to make use of the strange tricks in the plastic arts to amass wealth and treasures. In addition, he also has a pair of hands that are different from ordinary people. Their greed led them to die on the mechanism left by Ma Shilang. Let the pheasant crow to announce the dawn. The amazing thing is that after hundreds of years, not only has he not decayed inside, but he still looks like a living person. The books not only taught him how to carve stone, but also recorded many strange tricks. When he was 30 years old, he accidentally met a god who gave him this book called Shaping Ju. The dragon energy of the mountain range only ensured that his body would not rot, but did not bring him back to life. The anchors who disappeared earlier may have thought of a way to get inside. It clearly records some of the life of the owner of the book. He even married himself several beautiful wives. The appearance of these three things further verified Yang Lin's previous guess. A hammer, a drill, and a book. The skin, nails, hair, and even the face are no different from when he was alive. Relying on these secret techniques, Macy Lang quickly transformed from an ordinary craftsman to a wealthy man. The burial items were also very simple. If nothing else, he should be a mason. His hands are thick and big, in particular, the joints were as thick as rebar, which looked extremely uncoordinated compared to his entire body. Thinking of this, Yang Lin casually picked up the book in the sarcophagus. Let the stone horse grind in the middle of the night. The word Shaping Ju was the first to catch his eye. The purpose is to one day be reborn and continue to enjoy these wealth. It even records the secret method of using the stone dragon to steal the dragon vein's spiritual energy to extend his life. For example, let the stone man give birth to intelligence. It's a pity that all this is just his dream after all. Turning to the first page of the book, lines of handsome fonts appeared in front of him. These treasures were then hidden in the underground palace behind the temple. That is the person lying in the coffin. Entertainment, let you do a side job and set up a stall to tell fortunes. Author, Immortal Q int love is. Chapter 360. According to the records of Mason Masaru, the big hole behind the coffin is the passage leading to the underground palace. It was supposed to be a closed state, but it seems that someone accidentally discovered this secret passage. Combined with some legends about Masaru, they also knew that there was a treasure hidden inside. Be it the villa developers in the past or the secret exploring anchors in the back. After discovering this tunnel, the greed in my heart was aroused. And their results are self-evident. Masaru is not a good person to begin with, and he has already set up a lot of traps inside. Yang Lin looked at the entrance, naturally not interested in the treasure inside. For him now, wealth has no meaning. All the wealth of the world will be his if he wishes it. What he was curious about was whether there would be anything useful to him in these treasures. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and immediately started using his magical power to control objects. The treasures in the underground palace were taken out one by one using the method of retrieval from the air. Soon the empty temple hall was filled with all kinds of rare treasures. Gold jade, jade antiques, pearl agate. The quantity can almost be measured in tons. After some searching, he actually found a few different things. A small bag of seeds, a few jade-like stones, and a piece of tortoise shell. These things are piled among the many treasures and are inconspicuous. But Yang Lin still felt a different atmosphere on them. A few more things that don't belong to Blue Star. The moment he saw these items, Yang Lin had such an idea in his mind. Especially after seeing those stones, because these stones looked like spiritual stones that he could only see in his previous life. Although these spiritual stones are all useless, there is no reason why they would appear here. They were either left here by someone, or they traveled through time on their own. Obviously, the former is more likely. Unconsciously, he thought of the god Maslin mentioned in the book who taught him the shaping technique. Unsurprisingly, this man of God is someone from other worlds that cultivate immortals. When he thought of this, Yang Lin took a deep breath. This world is starting to become more and more interesting. It seems that it is not an accident that I came to this world. As he spoke, he picked up the three things. Let's not talk about the few spiritual stones that have lost their spirituality. What Yang Lin is most concerned about is the small packet of seeds. Without exception, these seeds are some spiritual plants that existed in his previous life. If these spiritual plants can still germinate, they can be used to refine some elixirs, the efficacy of which will far exceed that of elixirs refined from ordinary medicinal materials in this world. After checking it, his face was instantly filled with excitement. After hundreds of years, the seeds of these spiritual plants are still active. Just plant it in the soil and it will regrow. As for that piece of tortoise shell, it was not an ordinary thing, but a shell shed from a monster beast. Whether it is used for divination or for refining magic weapons, it is the best choice. Naturally, Yang Lin also put these three things into his sleeves. As for the yellow and white things next to him, he did not let them stay here. After putting everything away, he looked at Masaru's body. Without the maintenance of dragon vein spiritual energy, corruption has begun to occur in just a few minutes. Looking at everything in front of him, Yang Lin finally did not let his body be exposed in the wilderness. After closing the sarcophagus for him again, he was pushed into the underground palace together with the sarcophagus. The hammer and iron drill that should have been lying in the sarcophagus now appeared in Yang Lin's hands. He had already observed before that these two things were not treasures or magic weapons. But since Masaru uses them all year round, they are already stained with some spiritual energy. If used to carve stone, it will exert magical power. Yang Lin also planned to use them to learn the contents of the shaping technique. Although shaping technique is not a method of cultivation, the magic within it is worth learning from. Especially the one who can turn decay into magic. According to the records inside, if you can reach the highest level, you can revive dead trees and revive stone carvings. Ma Silang never reached this state in his life. But that's just because he is a mortal body. Facing a series of questions from the crowd, Yang Lin always looked calm. After hearing these words, everyone's eyes lit up instantly. Although they like money, they also care more about their own lives. But Yang Lin's eyes were looking at the towering mountains behind him. "Teacher Yang, what is there in that temple?" As soon as the sentence came out, everyone immediately nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. They don't care about the agencies in the underground palace, but they have to consider the public security agencies. Suddenly the atmosphere at the scene became weird again. There won't be any treasure hidden inside, right? Yang Lin was confident that he could master this profound skill in a short period of time and use this method to help him survive the catastrophe of ascension. But where did the child come from in this barren mountain? If you don't care about your life, you can try it. But at this moment, a strange cry suddenly came from the grass not far behind everyone. He could feel a hint of consciousness, which seemed to be expressing gratitude to him. If they go in again, it will be equivalent to tomb robbing. "Teacher Yang, you have finally come down. We were worried that something might happen to you up there." Thinking of this, Yang Lin looked back at the stone dragon that he had cut off, and then strode out of the temple. When he landed, several members of the program team and the previous internet celebrity anchors were already waiting there. There is indeed an underground palace there, and there is indeed treasure. And we seem to have heard some strange noises just now. As soon as they heard that someone was dead, everyone's expressions became unnatural. After arriving on the boulder in front of the temple, he jumped directly from the 100-meter high position. Is there really an underground palace? More importantly, now that Yang Lin has exposed this place, it should be protected by relevant units soon. Yes, just tell us. But Yang Lin's next words made them give up the idea immediately. "Since you want to know so much, then I will explain it to you. Because the sound sounds like a child crying." Looking at Yang Lin's graceful figure, everyone's eyes were filled with envy and admiration. Everyone's expressions suddenly froze. "Do you want to know?" At this point, the matter has theoretically come to an end. But there are also many mechanisms inside. The people who developed this villa area before, as well as the first few anchors who entered, should all have died here. Yes, it felt like the ground was shaking just now, and the whole mountain was about to collapse.